I shall say. It's just Chris Jackson was 3:30 KC. Listen, this is not 4 o'clock. It is 5 o'clock, but today is a special show. We got a hot topic to really talk about. And our special guest that's in here to talk about it with us is Mr. Nimrod Chappell. He is the owner of the Chappell Law Group up in Jeff City, and he does a lot of amazing things. I'll just jump right into it and introduce him to some and present him to others. Mr. Chapel, how are you, sir?
Good, good. Great to be with you. Thanks for allowing us to be on today, man.
Absolutely, yeah. I am live in location, so if y'all see me beep out here and there, that's because I'm live on location. But we had to get this word out because it's definitely something that we need to know as a community and stay privy to what we're going to talk about today. So, Mr. Chapel, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, and actually introduce yourself to the people who may not know you, and then we'll go right into it while we're here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. I'm Nimrod Chappell. I'm president of the Missouri State Conference of the NAACP. I'm also board chair for Missourians to Abolish the Death Penalty. Two separate organizations, but two entities created and engaged in working against injustices and promoting equality in the state and in the nation. In my day job, because those are both volunteer positions, I work as a trial lawyer at the Chappell Law Group, representing individuals who've been cheated, mistreated, and injured. So anytime that I can lend my voice to those folks who have suffered so greatly, especially in this case, and I can't wait to talk about some of the facts. Maybe you've seen it on social media. We've got about 1.5 million people who signed petitions over that now, who are against the execution of Marcellus Williams. And so I'm excited from that fact to be here, but saddened that we have to have this discussion on what it means to be Black in Missouri today, because this is what we're actually talking about.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that we are here, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to talk about the case of Marcellus Williams, who's pending death. He's pending a death trial, and the case is so complex. It's got so many different moving parts. It's kind of hard to grasp because when you read one article, it doesn't connect with the other one, but then it all kind of intermingles, and it just seems like there's a lot going on with this case that's been kind of put out there and presented to the people to maybe confuse us or to just kind of give us the information. But I'll let you go and speak to it, sir.
Thank you, thank you, and I think, Chris, you're exactly right. The overarching issue is that Missouri is still dealing with this same culture of death that has been in the same space since before we were even a state. In 1820, there was a question on whether or not Blacks should be in the state at all, allowed to exist in the states, right? So now we got politicians talking about mass deportations of one group or another. We were looking at the same issue in Missouri, whether or not you were enslaved or not. That was in 1820. This is the same state that became a part of the Missouri Compromise, allowed Maine to come in as a clean state, right, without slavery. And you know what's happening in Maine. People have nice lives. They wear plaid, they have syrup, they have good things going on. Here in Missouri, we're dealing with individuals who are lacking education, don't have good health care outcomes, especially if you're a minority, who cannot drive from place to place because driving while Black is such a thing that the NAACP travel advisory was issued, right? That's what we have here in Missouri. And it's the same state that issued the Dred Scott decision, who also was the same Supreme Court that recently heard arguments about Marcellus Williams and the ability of whether or not Black people would be allowed to serve on a jury. Let that sink in, right? Every one of those jury notices that Black folks get, and they're like, man, I better go to work. I got something else to do. I can't be sitting over there for whatever days. The ability to do that is a constitutional privilege, right? The Missouri Supreme Court did not address that issue in resolving the appeal of Marcellus Williams's case. And so when we think about the legal issues, they are desperate and they are complex. But we're going to break those down for you today, and I'm going to do my best.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said. That is so funny that you talked about the ability to go in there and and vote on. I'm sorry, not vote, but as a juror. So many people that I know growing up are like, man, I don't want to serve on jury. But when you go in there and you're and a jury of your peers or your non-peers, they have the ability to sway the case, judge on what they think about the case and what's on the facts and things like that. So that's a
Yep.
whole nother topic.
That's right.
So
That's right. Yeah.
and it just so many things to go with that. I'm gonna pause for a second.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more, Chris, because the truth is that if we don't serve as a part of the judicial system, right? Now, not everybody's going to be a judge. You don't have to be a prosecutor. You don't have to be a public defender or a criminal defense attorney. The truth is that we as citizens have a right to serve on these juries. And that many times it's been glorified. You've seen it on TV, right? Your neighbors have told you, other folks have shared with you instances where, oh, I got this notice about being in the jury, and I don't want to do that, right? Now, the truth is that Missouri does not pay right for it. It doesn't pay dollar for dollar on what you could make even for minimum wage. But that's not the issue. The issue is that somebody who might be from your community, who might be members of your distant family, who needs to have the opportunity to ensure that not just a perspective, but the community perspective is reflected in the determination. And that includes you. That includes you, and it includes me. If we don't serve on juries, then we can be sure that we are guaranteed some lesser form of justice. And you're saying, well, Nimrod Chapel, why is it that you're talking about this right now? Why are you bringing this up in the context of Charles Williams's case? It's very simple. One of the issues raised at the Missouri Supreme Court, the same court that heard the Dred Scott case. The Dred Scott case, you remember, is the one that decided that black people weren't really people. They're used some portion of a person, maybe 3/5, maybe a little less. I don't know. I don't do fractions of human beings because I think that allows people to bleed out and die. And that's what's been happening to black people in the state of Missouri, right? That is what we're afraid is going to happen to Marcellus Williams. What we actually see is that if allowed to participate in the jury system, and if we do our job and show up and serve on those juries, we will ensure that justice is said, right? Now, does that ensure that black people are going to get off? That's the prosecutor's thought. That is the same thought that McCullough and his office had when they struck 5 black people. Now, when you're picking a jury, you got a whole bunch of people in the room, you get to just strike some people. You don't have to have everybody on there. They picked out 5 black people, and they were like, well, we don't want these 5 black people. It was all black people that they kicked out. The Supreme Court has often said, that's impermissible. You can't do that. If you get 5 picks and you pick all 5 black people, that's not right. Don't do that. It doesn't reflect the community. It's not equitable. Okay. Worse than that, one of the prosecutors got up on the stand in front of the Honorable Judge Hilton in the county of St. Louis and testified that one of the reasons that he excluded a black juror, this is not any of the 5, right? Get my hand right. It's
Right.
an additional one. It's one more plus the 5. That's 6. The last one that they struck, they said, well, he looked like the defendant. Chris, come on, man.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
You look like the defendant. Now,
Yeah.
you've all heard it. Y'all look alike, right?
Yeah. Right.
Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, clearly, Chris is much more handsome than I am. I have a scraggly beard. Chris has no beard, right?
No.
We don't all look alike.
Right.
Chris is very intelligent. I'm just struggling to keep up most days.
Oh, okay.
Come on. But that's
being
what
modest.
Hey, that's what Marcellus Williams suffered with that day. He had a jury that was supposed to be at least composed of some of his peers, people from his community, and they got excluded by McCullough. Now, y'all have a good prosecutor who's just recently moved on to Congress, Wesley Bell. He brought the case. And Chris, I think this is super important. He brought this case because he felt like Marcellus Williams was innocent, that there was evidence of innocence that needed to be explored by the court. And stop me when you're ready, man. But part of the story in this case is that when they got to court in front of Judge Hilton, in front of St. Louis County, Judge Hilton heard evidence that said 2 things. One, that they excluded black people. That is a bat challenge. SON. It means that you're not supposed to exclude black people simply for being black. Everybody knows that's wrong. They did it. Now,
Right.
the second thing is that the prosecutor and the police department, the ones who collected the murder weapon, right? Now, I don't have a murder weapon. I don't have a knife here with me, and it wouldn't be
Mm.
the right one if it was. But
Right.
let's pretend the stapler was it. Now, if this stapler was sent over to the lab and they were going to do some DNA testing or whatever testing they do at the time of the murder, then they would like test it and then they would send it back. Now, what you don't do is handle it like I do a stapler. You don't
Mm.
open it. You don't take out the other parts. I don't know how the other part. Look, there it is. You don't do that. No. And the reason you don't do that is because the state has a duty to preserve evidence. It's important in case there's an appeal. Now, they knew that with a death sentence that there would be numerous appeals. Nevertheless, the prosecutor went ahead and touched that murder weapon so many times,
Mm.
so often, that between him and the cop that picked it up the first time, there's no way to tell whose DNA is on there. Let
Mm.
that sink in. So
Interesting.
Missouri allows for people to fight death sentences, in particular if there's DNA evidence. And then the prosecutor and the cops involved with putting Marcellus Williams in a jail cell in the first place are the same people who destroyed the evidence that would exonerate him. That
Mm.
sound right?
No, that doesn't. And there are different cases that you hear about things like this that go on,
Mhm.
and even in the case here with Mr. Williams, his fate is today. Am I correct?
Listen, it is 5:17.
Yeah.
His death warrant is signed for 6 o'clock. They can
Yeah.
execute him anytime after 6 p.m. tonight.
Yeah.
This is immediate. It's an
Yeah.
emergency. Yeah.
So what, as a citizen, what are we to do and what can we do? I mean, are they still taking phone calls to halt this, or is it still some? What can we do as concerned citizens to help this gentleman out,
Chris, thank you so much,
Mr.
man. And
Marcellus?
you're so right. You're so right. Not only do we stay hopeful, we are prayerful, right?
Yeah.
So when dozens of clergy gathered around the governor's office this afternoon and prayed that God would weigh on him taking of
Yeah.
another human being's life,
Mm.
we're still prayerful that that's going to work. We've been working that along with the idea that we as regular people who may be driven by faith or consciousness having the ability and the obligation to call the governor's office at 573-751-3222, 573-751-3222, and express to the that death is not what we want, that we need to halt the execution of Marcellus Williams, and that we can do that now. We have the ability to do that now. He can do that now. He doesn't have to stay. He can just post, right? Allow somebody to look into the facts of the case. Is this appropriate? Is this what state taxpayers want money spent on? I'll tell you what, I'm a taxpayer. I pay plenty of taxes. I don't know about you. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to the gas station, every time you get your check from your job, everybody's got their hands in your pocket taking away your tax dollars. Tonight at 6 p.m., they're about to use that same money to execute Marcellus Williams. I don't agree. And if you don't agree, call 573-751-3222. That's the immediate thing to do. Now, and Chris, because you asked a question, I want to give you a full answer. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
The second part of this answer is so crucial because what we hear from is a lot of politicians, right? Now, politicians have bad names. They use that on both sides. If you're Democrat,
Mhm.
you're a bad politician. If you're Republican, you're a bad politician. I guess if you're a libertarian, you still classify as a politician, but you still gonna have some problems because people think that you're only in it for you.
Right.
I want the politicians to separate themselves from that class of folks that have been denigrated. And it's real easy. So far, we have not heard from any Republicans who are pro-life, right? So stick with me. Pro-life Republicans say we are all about the sanctity of life, and that's why they're against three about the woman's ability to have control of her own body and whether she can be forced or compelled to give birth if she is not in that, including issues of rape and incest and all those other horrible atrocities, right? I want those Republicans to put their hand up and say, I called Governor Parson. And I wait on Governor Parson to intercede and to halt the execution of Marcellus Williams. Because if you hear me, what I'm saying is that we need politicians who are consistent. You can't say that we honor the life of the sanctity of life over here if it's a baby who, by the way, their Missouri policies say don't feed, don't clothe, don't educate. Okay? Put that to the side for a second. But then on the end of the spectrum, when you get to Marcellus Williams, who happens to be an African American man, decide that, yeah, we're just going to kill him. That's the right. No, either you respect life or you don't, and we will not tolerate those inconsistencies. And I'll tell you right now, the Missouri NAACP has no friends. And what do you mean by that, Rod? Because we have members. We have tens of thousands of members throughout the state of Missouri and hundreds of thousands of members, millions across the country and throughout the world. The point that I'm making is that we have no permanent friends or enemies. What we have are permanent issues. We believe in equality and justice, and part of that requires some transparency. So if you're a Republican, I'm going to call you out. If you're a Democrat, I'm going to call you out. But in particular, right now, I can see that there are a whole bunch of pro-life Republicans who have failed to live up to their own talking points, failed to agree that they are going to do what they said they were going to do, which was protect life. Not a one of them has stepped up to protect Marcellus Williams. And I'll tell you why. It's because of racism. Marcellus Williams is a black man. They aren't thinking of black men when they're thinking about the abortion issue. Instead, they're fighting Amendment 3 and dismissing Marcellus Williams. Please.
So saying that, does racism really still exist in Missouri, as you would say?
Oh, does it? Does it? Racism never left, Chris. It never left. It never left. That's why in 2017, when we saw that they erased civil rights prohibitions about discrimination in the workplace with Senate Bill 43 under the leadership of now disgraced Governor Eric Greitens and a whole bunch of other Republican legislators who have gone on to become judges and work in the bureaucracy, right? We said it then that racism is alive and well, and it is nothing more than Jim Crow because they are legislating the ability of white Missourians to exist in a better way than African-American Missourians simply based on skin color. And how do we know? We know because the educational outcomes are different, not because people study. Some people are going to study, some people are not. But you would expect that percentages of the same folks are going to be interested in the same issues, right? I like to read. There are other black people who like to read. White people like to read. Everybody likes to read. Some people don't like to read. Fine, whatever. Educational outcomes should not be so desperate, especially when we look at disciplinary outcomes. Now, we're meeting on Saturday the 28th in Columbia, Missouri at Stony Creek Inn, starting at 9 o'clock to talk about NAACP issues, and education is one of those. Chris, the reason that we're talking about those issues is because in St. Charles County, there was a noose hung in the first week of school in the boys' bathroom. What are we talking about at the high school? A noose. Who's investigating that? Where's our answers on that? What about the kids and the families who were exposed to that issue? Which is not just like, oh, somebody has done something that offended me. This is a threat on your life because as soon as they call you the N-word, the next thing they do is put their hands on you. And usually, many times, it can end up with a noose. This is one of those occasions where there's a noose there. There's a history of racism in that school. Go across the street to Park Hill. At Park Hill, you can see that a young man named Colby Barker, African-American male, has a 3.6 GPA, never been in trouble before, goes to the school, complains that he had been discriminated against and that his classmate had been threatened with rape. Okay, let that sink in. This is high school, right? And he later sees the same student in the hallway a week later. Now, wait a second. If one student is threatening another student with rape, do they get to stay in school? Not in my book. No, that don't sound right. Yeah, so what we're looking at with him is he was kicked out of school for a week. So when I talk about these disparities, this is what the NAACP is talking about. Now, we are volunteer-led and run. We need more people who are in communities to come forward and talk about the issues that are affecting their communities. I think it's so important because when we think about racism, think about healthcare. In the Boot Hill in southeast Missouri, right? And I don't mean to be pejorative by saying Boot Hill, But in Southeast Missouri, the death rate of Black mothers is on par with third world countries. Let that sink in. Missouri is in the United States of America. We are not a third world country. We are not a civilization who is starving for resources, unless you live in a Black community that's not appreciated, unless you're a Black person in a majority community that's not appreciated, where your pain, where your bodily functions are thought to be somewhat different. That is racism at its core. The Health Committee and the NAACP works to address those issues. And then I just want to finalize or conclude at least this part of it with, think about driving along the highway. You're on the street, you're in your car, you're going to work, you're taking your children to school, you're trying to go to church, you're going to the grocery store, you're doing what people do. If you are not allowed to go along the roadway, to traverse these highways and byways, you are entitled to, as a constitutional citizen, as a Missourian, simply because of your skin color. And how do you know that you're not allowed to? Because every year there's a report put out by the Attorney General. That report has what is supposed to include a disparity index. And it is a tabulation of numbers to say, if you're in Columbia like it was 2 years ago, you are 300% more likely to be pulled over if you're Black. Wait, Chris, anybody send their kids to school at MU? That's in Columbia. Wait, if you're in one of these small communities down in the Southeast, the percentages of you being pulled over is higher than it is if you're in St. Louis. St. Louis is full of people who are brown, right?
Yep.
Yeah. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in the mind of the NAACP and the minds of people who understand how life works that there is racism in Missouri.
So can a quick question? And I talked about the jurors, and a lot of times, we kind of shun away from the juror, doing jury duty. And not only that, even the census, when they take the census, see, I noticed that the census is really connected to the funds that come into your community.
Yes.
So all that's got to work in tandem for us to build a better community, as far as the census, and far as people that get on the jury that look like us, in cases just like this in Mr. Williams' case. We have to have a voice. We have to have a voice on the inside, and advocates that are fighting for us on the outside as well. And oftentimes we don't have that, and that's our disadvantage.
That's right. That's right. Every time a Black person skips being on the jury, talking about, I'm too busy, I got to do this, I got to do that, I can't afford the hit that is going to cost me to sit there for a day or two. Right. What you're ensuring is that the Black defendant, the white defendant, that the litigants, whatever color they may be, have a lesser quality of justice. And you may say, oh, that's good for me because I didn't miss my X number of dollars, my $4, my $8 at work. But you can ensure that people like Marcellus Williams would not be in prison today had the Black people not been struck from his jury. Right? Had the one that was supposed to be on been over there. And what if the other Black folks who could have showed up would have? Right? Let's give everybody an opportunity. Let's let the system function as it's supposed to. Now, when it comes to taxes, nobody's allowed to skip. You pay your tax, and if you don't, they come get you. If you want to give other folks who live in your community a lesser quality of justice, make sure you do it intentionally because you don't like them, right? If you know that it's Mr. Jones down the street and you don't like Mr. Jones and you're going to sit on his case, then be like, I'm not going to sit on his case because I don't even like him. But if the reality is that you just want to do your job as a citizen and make sure that the three branches of government work, we have to vote, we have to pay our taxes, we have to sit on juries. And when politicians are not accountable for the things that they said that they would do, promote equality, promote justice, ensure for the welfare of the people, that we hold them accountable, and we hold them accountable with our votes. So if there are folks that are on the ballot here in November, that there are folks who you have not heard from who have said, hey, we need to protect Marcellus Williams to make sure he's not executed when he shouldn't be, don't vote for him. If there are entire parties, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, I don't care, who said, I'm not voting, I'm not taking care of the issues at hand, Be careful of those folks. Now, right now, we have a bunch of Republicans and a Republican governor who claims to be a man of faith, right?
Hmm.
He says that he is against taking a life, unless it's the life of a person who's an adult who's on death row. And there
Hmm.
have been a lot of black folks on death row who have been executed by him. If Marcellus Williams is executed at 6 o'clock tonight, he will be the 12th person Governor Parson has executed.
Hmm.
Somebody asked me the other day, what is a serial killer?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To let that settle in, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
So, in many cases, oftentimes people say, you know what, being black, the chips are always stacked against us. We don't have a dog in the fight. We have nobody in political realm. We have nobody fighting for us. But we're in a sense kind of powerless. But I would beg to differ on that. Would you?
I would. I totally
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
totally do. In three different ways. The first is that what I said at the beginning is important. If you go on your website, you can put it in on your phone, you can look it up on your watch, you can ask your friend. www.mo in Missouri, NAACP.org. There is a scorecard there that talks about the various politicians and political issues, the Republicans and the Democrats. It talks about everybody. And it talks about where they fall on the issues. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. What I care is, are you a good politician? Do you love the
Mm,
people and watch out for their welfare? And
yeah.
if you're not, then you should not be a politician in
Yeah.
particular, regardless of your party. And so I want everybody to go over there to that website, www.monnaacp.org, and check out the scorecard. You vote your conscience, but at least know where these people stand on the issues. That's
Hmm.
number one. Now, number two, in terms of people being powerless, I stood in the Capitol Rotunda in the state of Missouri today. Yesterday, I was in the Missouri Supreme Court listening to arguments. At both counts, we were asking the legislative branch and the judicial branch to spare the life of Marcellus Williams. Because they didn't doesn't mean that we didn't have any power or we didn't have an ability to control our own destiny. What that means is that those two avenues are so politically controlled, right? Or at
Right.
least the law is so bent in one way or another that we don't have the ability to get the
Mm,
desired outcome, which is to save the life of an innocent man. In which
mm,
case, the answer is very simple. Refer back to option A. Go to the scorecard, pick you some politicians that believe that innocence is actually a qualification for not getting executed, right? Pick you
mm,
some of them.
yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
trouble figuring out who that is, feel free to contact the NAACP at president@monnaacp.org. Just email president@monnaacp.org, and I'll do my best to shoot you straight. Now, here's the last thing. Here's the last thing. Because the NAACP is ultimately committed, and many of you in Kansas City saw in the Kansas City Star the letter from our president, Derek Johnson. Derek Johnson said it straight. He said, call me, bro. He told the governor of the state of Missouri, Governor Parson, who has refused to return my call, by the way, give me a call. Let's talk about
Mm,
Marcellus Williams. Let's have a conversation about what's getting ready to happen. Now,
mm,
sadly, he chose not to. He, being Governor Parsons, has chosen not to call the president of the NAACP for the United States back. How disrespectful. How
yeah.
disgraceful. But you know what we do? We agitate. So
Yeah.
we litigate, we legislate, and we agitate, right?
Hmm.
I received several calls today, and I talked to many law enforcement people in person. There were concerns about what's getting ready to happen if
Yeah.
the execution of Marcellus Williams is carried out. I understand those concerns, right? Because once you break down to people that the entire system of justice does not work for them,
Mm,
some people might have a question of, am I going to participate?
yeah.
Right? I mean, that
Yeah.
might be a reasonable question. I
Right.
have a question. I choose to
Right.
reform the system, right? I think we can reform as a system that maybe never was made for us, but can sure work for everybody who is a human being. And I happen to be a
Right.
human being, right? Some other folks feel different. So as you run into those folks, what I want you to do is I want you to tell people, Let's participate. Let's work in this system. You have a skill set. Chris, you have an incredible skill set. You have intellect, you have technological resources, you got the ability to reach the masses. There are other people in their communities who are the person on their block, the person in their family. We've got to deliver a message on November when it comes to voting day, and vote early if you can, and come work out at the polls if you can. Spend 5 minutes or a half hour, register somebody to vote before October the 9th. They can still vote in the November election before October the 9th. Encourage somebody to make a good decision. And if anybody is telling you some stuff about, oh, I like people who are not prosecutors. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'm telling you right now that there are prosecutors who've run for office who are getting ready to be public officials who are going to be great. I'm telling you right now that there are some people who are not qualified for public office, and I think that we have to hold them accountable. We should not be held to a standard that is different than everybody else. In order to prevent that, we've got to make sure that everyone can be communicated with in the name of citizens that we hold. And we do that by upholding the law daily. Go and participate in the juries, register to vote. If you need to check on your registration to vote, please do. And don't vote for somebody that's trying to kill you. Let me tell you, if anybody is trying to export or deport millions of people who are brown, Chris, me and you are brown.
Yeah.
Okay? Right? At the end of the day, we're brown.
Yeah.
They are not for us. If anybody is trying to count your votes by hand, don't nobody count votes by hand. What is that? We are a mechanized society. Be careful of them. They are not for you. If you have a governor who has not spoken out on this issue of Marcellus Williams, are we going to execute an innocent person? Be leery of that person. Don't go for it.
Yeah, and I think that now there's so much out there at hand. We have a major election coming up here, soon, and then there's definitely a lot behind that, with Trump and Harris, the whole ticket there, and some projects that he was coming out with. Just a whole line. I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed with that kind of stuff, and I say, well, you know what? I've heard many people say that my vote doesn't matter.
Right.
Even the school board here, in Lee Summit, there were a lot of people saying that the turnout for the school board was super low this year.
Yeah.
We just had prosecutors run, so we have a new prosecutor down in office. So there's a lot going on with that as well. So and it's overwhelming for people who just don't know, but there's information out there. There's information out there, but you gotta, sometimes you have to dig for it a little bit, but it's there.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Hey, Chris, you want me to cover some of the initiative petition ballots and the NAACP stance on that?
I would love, please.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And this is at that website, www.monwaacp.org. Amendment 2 is sports betting. Now, the NAACP took no issue on that because of when it came out. If you like sports betting, you want people to be betting the state, bet for it. If you don't, then don't. But one question I would suggest is, and the NAACP has not heard from the proponents, the people who are supporting Amendment 2, that there should be sports betting, because this is an important issue. They say it's going to fund the schools. We've heard that before. I'd like to understand how and what control mechanisms there are for that. Right now, we don't understand that there are any, and that leads to some concern, but we've issued no recommendation from the NAACP. Amendment 3 on reproductive freedoms. Should women be in control of their body? Do I have to ask that question? That's a question that they're going to ask. It's Amendment 3. Should women be in control of their bodies? The answer is yes. In the NAACP stance, human beings should be in control of themselves, right? While there are a lot of moral situations that might dictate how we as individuals feel about a particular issue, that's up to the individual. But leave it to the individual. Don't decide for them. So we vote yes on Amendment 3. Amendment 6 was court costs and fees for sheriffs and prosecutors. Chris, can you guess where we come down on this one? Yeah, we say no. We say if sheriffs county sheriffs, and prosecutors want to have a good retirement system, they should do like everybody else does, pay for it. I don't have to pay for Chris's retirement, and Chris doesn't pay for mine. So we shouldn't pay for the prosecutors and the sheriff's departments with every pleading with every case that's filed in a circuit court, right? And what that would mean is if you intend to protect your rights as a citizen because somebody ripped you off and you're going to sue them because they failed to give you a title to a car that you bought, that you would have to pay a fee that would go to the sheriff's and the prosecutor's retirement. They didn't have nothing to do with your case. Why are you paying for that? That's not right. No. So we say no, don't do that. If they want to have a retirement, get your own. Amendment 7 is election restrictions. And this amendment would create an additional barrier to potential future efforts to change the way that we conduct elections. And we say no to that. So this is ranked choice voting. This is to eliminate a war of the crazies, right? Where you have 3 politicians who are on one side and 1 who's on the other. Now, it doesn't matter whether Republican or Democrat on either side. If you've got 3 on one side and 1 from a different party on the other, ranked choice voting allows you to pick the way that you want to organize those candidates, right? You don't have to pick either or, which is the way it is now. You could pick, you could put one of those 3 as the least crazy in your book, and then put the worst crazy person at the bottom, and then see how that works out for everybody. That prevents crazy candidates from driving the ballots one way or another. We say that ranked choice voting is a good idea. So we would vote no on Amendment 7. And then there's also Proposition A. And this ballot measure changes the way that Missouri provides protections for employees. You know what it gives? Hey, Chris, you want some paid time off when you're sick?
That'd be nice.
Yeah, man. Hey, vote on Proposition A, brother. Vote yes on Proposition A. That's going to get you some paid time off when you're sick. That's going to get you some sick leave, okay? That makes sense for working people. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Missouri is full of working people that have been divided in what Walter Johnson, in his book, if anybody's looking for a good book to read, called The Broken Heart of America, Walter Johnson's book talked about industry, dividing the people of Missouri, dividing us in such a way that it's not just based on race and sex and socioeconomic status. It's based on pure power, right? So if you're rich and powerful in Missouri, you are voting no against Proposition A because you don't want working people to have benefits like sick leave. You think if you get sick that you don't get any money, and so you don't work, you don't get any money. I don't know. The rest of the world doesn't work like that. What that does is to ensure that wages are kept low. Don't do that. If you are a working person and you think that you're entitled to the fruits of your labor, then make sure that your labor is valued appropriately. You get sick time off.
You said that book was The Broken Heart of America.
Broken Heart of America by Walter Johnson. Yeah, okay. It's one of the most profound books that I've read in the last 5 years. Yeah. And by the way,
let me ask you a quick question. You said that's one of the most profound books that you've read. Just from a literacy rate, I'm gonna kind of pivot for just a second. How important is it for us to read? And I've got a couple of books that I'm really looking to digging in right now. And I know our literacy rate, even after COVID, our literacy rate has gone down tremendously.
Yes.
So that's a struggle with and there's a lot of kids that are now becoming diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia and some other things. So from what you guys see, if you see anything, but from what you guys see as far as literacy rate, how important is that for us to really kind of stay focused on that?
Chris, man, I wish that we were not in sync, brother, because you are highlighting on a problem that the NAACP has identified, not only at the national level, when we passed a resolution that literacy rates must be considered in educational outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Because, and you've seen it, you might have seen it in your own communities or folks where people who cannot read are getting passed out of school.
Yep.
If you can't read, I don't know why you're getting out of school. You need to be learning how to read.
That's
right?
right.
And you need to not only understand the letters that you're reading, but also what they mean and how to put them
Yeah.
together, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Not that we all gonna do it right all the time. I slip up from time to time. I'm not a great speller. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I think we need to admit that literacy is so fundamentally important because it's the way that ideas are translated,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And the reason why I said that is because a lot of times when we're going to the ballot and we're going to read over some of these documents and things like that, and and sometimes I have a struggle, to be honest with you, but sometimes we sit there and we listen, you're like, that's too much to read, or I
yeah,
don't want to, but there's some really pertinent information in there that we really need to hone in on. So I think the reason why I asked that is because that may be overwhelming for a lot of people to be like, you know what, that's just too much.
that's right.
I'd
That's
rather I'd rather scroll and then scroll on my phone for the next 2 hours as opposed
yeah.
to just go ahead and find out what I need to find out.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too, Chris, because I mean, and that's why we created the scorecard at the NAACP, because we know that politicians play games with the titles they put on these things.
Hmm.
The Attorney General, for example, has been representing the Secretary of State. So Andrew Bailey, who, by the way, promotes Jim Crow policies, according to the NAACP. Okay, let that sink in. That he promotes laws that disenfranchise Black people. Okay.
Yeah.
He is defending lawsuits from the Secretary of State who disenfranchised hundreds of thousands of people with a law that he tried to pass, House Bill 1878. Now, you could either be like me, right? Who took off of work to go over to the state capitol to participate in the hearings, read the legislation, then worked with lawyers to file the lawsuit, showed up in court all the time with these lawsuits, prosecuted the case to make sure that the Supreme Court of Missouri determines that there shall not be a Jim Crow voting law, right? You could do all of that, and I would love it. Or you could look at the website, www.monnaacp.org, and see a summary, just like the scorecard. And here's the scorecard. I'll put it up here. Here's the scorecard. Look, it's got two sides. It's not incredibly, I'm going to get it there. Hold on. Where is that? Maybe.
Move it probably over
Yeah.
to your right a little bit.
Over
But
there. There it is.
there you
Yeah.
go. Yep.
Yeah. So it's just two sides. It's easy to read. It's got a QR code. It'll take you right to it. And that's the thing. You can read a summary and know just as much. A lot of people say, "Well, I don't want to vote on something if I haven't read it all." Chris, nobody's got time to read 934 some pages of Project 2025, right?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And that's why we've got lawyers and professors and other folks who are breaking that stuff down. And on October the 10th, we're going to have a program on Lincoln University's campus to talk about Project 2025. Now, you can
Yeah.
either read it all, or you can come to the program, or you can get the summary that's going to be on the same website I just gave you. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing with these voting issues. Do not let, whether it's, and Lord help us, Chris, because whether it's a lack of will, right? A lack of time because you're working 2 and 3 jobs and you're raising a family,
Yeah.
or because you don't have the ability, right? Some people don't have the ability to read and comprehend some of the terms and some of the dynamics that are there. Take advantage of the resources that are there. They're available for all people. Do not be in the dark, and do not use the fact that you don't have time to read it all, or the time that you haven't had to digest it all, to refuse the information that you can access. Read
Yeah.
what you can, make up your mind, and vote.
Yeah. And I would submit also, whatever you can read, even if there's someone that maybe still in the weeds and kind of in the clouds about a lot of this stuff, just
Yeah.
pass the information along. And that's really what we do as a radio show. We try to put out as much information as we can when we get it, because a lot of times it is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to deal with. So, and we try to reach out to different organizations, different people to get that information out there. So I appreciate you for, connecting with us as well to do that.
Anytime, anytime, man. And that's what it's about, man. And that's why I love your show.
Thank you.
We've talked about a number of issues. This is one, Marcellus Williams, where they're going to execute him. Sadly, if nothing changes, they're going to execute him. And you may see me looking away from time to time because I'm checking my texts, I'm checking my emails just to make sure that the governor
Yeah.
didn't do the right thing.
Yes,
If
sir.
they don't do the right thing, Chris, you know, we don't want to necessarily take the streets, right? We're not going to have a one-night protest and declare that we've exacted some vengeance on people we can't even see. What we're going to do is have an organized effort to kick these people out of office. Kick them out of office. If there are people who had the ability to control what's happening here and you didn't hear from him, Governor Parsons. Now he's going to be out of office. But is there a Republican candidate that you haven't heard from? Is there? Running for statewide office? Who's projected to win? Like all of them? All I'm saying is, if you have people who say that they are pro-life who have not weighed in on Marcellus Williams' life and they're Republican or Democrat, push them off to the side. Democrats have spoken. I heard them. I've heard them all. They'll be at the dinner on September 28th in Columbia, Missouri, where we talked with Christopher Dunn, who has spent a lifetime in prison wrongfully, right? And then when it came time for him to get out, Andrew Bailey said, no, don't let him out. That's not right. That's not right. That's not even his job. A judge said to the state of Missouri, let him out. Andrew Bailey, who is a different lawyer, not with the agency that was commanded to let Chris Dunn out, said, don't do it. Now, can you imagine spending decades in prison and you have somebody telling you that you have to stay in there and there's not even their ability to say that?
Yeah.
Right? That's horrible. That's horrible. Let's work together. Let's continue to build the community that we want. Missouri can be so much more. We don't have to put up with this, and they don't get to treat us any way they want to.
Yeah. That's man, it's so powerful. You don't have to get treated the way that you want that they're treating you. You have an option.
Yes.
You know, there are options, there are avenues, there is resources. So, Mr. Chavel, so once again, if people want to man, we got it's 8 minutes till.
Yes.
If folks want to text in, if folks want to call in, folks want to even sign that petition, what should they do and how can they reach out to the NAACP?
So there's one way. If you want to send a letter to the governor's office right now, you don't even have to write it. Go to www.monAACP on your computer, on your phone. There is a link in there that you can click, and it will allow you to send a letter to the governor's office through the NAACP. Do that. If you are the kind of person that wants to also make a call, it's easy to make a call. 573-751-3222. 573-751-3222. By the way, that number doesn't change. That's always the number for the governor's office. And you can call them anytime you want. They have to log the calls, right? So even if nobody answers, they still have to log that you called. Leave a message. Tell them. Don't execute Marcellus Williams, okay? Do that.
Yeah.
Now, the third thing that I'm going to suggest, and this is something that we can't do in the moment, but that we need to do if we're going to build our power, to ensure that we as Black folks, we as brown folks, we as disadvantaged folks who are not rich industrialists, that we are not going to be taken advantage of. And that is very simple. Join with somebody else. So you see me and Chris here tonight. Thank you, Brother Chris, for being with me. Thank you for letting me be with you. Let's talk about these issues. Let's get them out. If you go to church, if you're a believer, talk about them in your church. People say, oh, we don't want no politics in the church. This is not politics. This is human rights, right? What you do unto the least of these, that's not political. That's humanity. That's what we do, right? So let's be clear about that, and let's do it together. If you have the capacity to join the NAACP, join. We want you in the NAACP. You can join at that same website, www.monaacp.org. A regular membership is $30 a year. And you say, what do I get for that? You get the privilege of being a supporter for people like Marcellus Williams. You get the privilege of being a supporter for you and your family and your community. And you don't have to be Black to join. It was started by people who are just good-hearted people, white and Black, who wanted people to stop being lynched. And here we are in 2024 on September the 24th of that year with Marcellus Williams, who is about to suffer a legal lynching. That's what's getting ready to happen to our brother. That's what we should do.
and school kids finding nooses in the bathroom.
Boy, I can't tell you. You know, I grew up in simpler times.
Been called the N-word.
That's right. Still, there is a African American girl who is about 13 years old down in Republic, Missouri. They are making monkey noises. Imagine what that's like every day she gets on the bus. 13-year-old girl dealing with that. Now, what does that do to a person? What kind of people are you building? I tell you what, they talk about folks not knowing how to act and not being polite and not engaging with other people. That's not what's going to happen to that little girl. She's going to have some backing. We're going to make sure of that. But there's another child out there who's not getting the support that they need, who is angry about how they're being treated, and they're not being treated right. Their anger is not misplaced. Our anger is not misplaced. I'm mad. I woke up this morning, I'm gonna say this, Chris, and then let me know, because I woke up this morning and I was sad and mad all at the same time. Sad that they are potentially going to execute Marcellus Williams, and mad that we as human beings, as civil rights leaders, as civil lawyers in the state of Missouri, as journalists, as mothers and fathers, have done everything that we can to tell the governor, don't do it. And we had 105 million people behind us, Chris.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's still not doing anything.
Yeah, there's someone in the chat here that's wanting to see if you can say that website again so we can post it.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
www.mo, as in Missouri, naacp.org. So that's just www.monaacp.org.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chapel, listen, we got to stay connected, got to get the word out, and continue to stay. It is a good fight. It is a good fight. That's you can't fight evil with evil. You can only fight evil with good.
That's right.
I've always found out that when you try to fight evil with evil, you always getting hurt yourself. You always end up yourself getting.
That's right. That's right.
You do. You try to throw dirt and dust, and you still get dusty and dirty too. You know what I'm saying? But you just continue to fight. Fight, continue to stay forward, and yeah, man, we gotta keep going. Justice for Marcellus, man, and every black and brown person, even the children, man, that are being affected in schools with the noose and the monkey calling and things like that. I heard someone say this years ago, and I'll let you wrap this up, or we can wrap this up. But he said, your kids don't go to school with the kid that they go to school with. They go to school with the kid's older brother, sister, and mother and father. And that's so true, because the kid is really just a sponge. Their environment is what they see every day at home. They take that to wherever they are, as far as school and community and things like that. That's their ideology, and what they get from home, they take that out into the community. So oftentimes the kid is only a reflection of what they get from at home.
That's right. So, that's right. Man, yeah. you could not be more right about that.
Yeah.
You've got children. Everybody's got children. If you've seen a child, it's around second or third grade where they may not get invited to this or that party, depending on what color they had, whether they're boy or girl. And they pick it up. They see what's happening. This is not something that they're born with. They take this thing called racism, called sexism, and they take it from the people that give it to them.
That's right.
I'm saying is that we need to continue to act together and not give it to them. And when we see it, fight against it. Tell the parents, it ain't right. And now you don't have to tell them directly. You don't have to be ugly, right? Yeah. But I tell you what, if enough of us say that we don't like nooses in St. Charles, there will be no more nooses. If enough of us say in Park Hill, do not say the N-word and then suspend the black child that got subjected to the N-word instead of the white child that said it. No, that can end. And I tell you what, if that was Republic, that whole bus would be cleared out, right?
Yeah.
There ain't gonna be no monkey noises. You can't have it. You can't have it. Can't have it.
Not here. Not on my watch. Not on our watch.
Sir. No, sir.
Yeah, and I'll say this here, and like I said, we'll close. But when you talked about, it's not really a black or white issue, and it shouldn't be. It's a human issue. It's a human. And I listened to a lot of Jane Elliott's messages. I don't know if you're familiar with Jane Elliott. Yeah, she talks a lot about just being a human race, and she got so much blowback from people and people tried to kill that lady, and all she was basically saying is it's a human right. We're all humans.
Right. Right. And
Make you think the people that try to kill her wasn't human, they must have been aliens or something, man. It's like,
Hey,
you can't because you can't get mad at that. You shouldn't
right.
get mad at that.
No,
Why would you
no,
get mad at that?
no,
Anyway,
no, you're right, man. You're right.
so
You're
this has been another episode of Street Therapy. This has been a impromptu special alert.
Thank you.
Special alert. Miss
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, tell us
Yeah.
about your shirt. What about your shirt
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
let me go up here. So death is not justice. Free Khalifa. Khalifa is Marcellus Williams. He converted to Islam while he's been in prison. He's been the imam for the prison that he was at down there in Potosi. Deeply religious person. He has put this all in the Creator's hands. And this is a shirt that I wore today to honor him, along with dozens and dozens of people throughout the state. There was a rally in Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, Jeff City, also down in Bonterra to protest his death, celebrate his life, and ensure that if he is executed, that we as a people can continue to move forward in his name, demanding that justice and equality for all people be had. And that's so important. Let's do that. Let's do
Yes,
that, Chris.
sir. Yes, sir. And either way this goes, Mr. Chappell, I want to. I saw that he wrote some poems. So
Yes.
either way, and we hope that this goes in God's favor and His favor. But
Yes.
I like to come on here one of these days. Like I said, hopefully this goes good. But I like to read one of those poems that he sent out there because I think it was pretty powerful. I read a little bit of one of them. I didn't get to all of it, but I like to read that poem as well.
Brother, let's read it together. I think that would be beautiful.
My man, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, listen, this has been another episode. Listen, take care of yourself, man. Take care of each other, man. Listen, we are a human race.
Yes.
We ain't aliens and demons and monsters. We shouldn't be. But anyway, Mr. Chapel, thank you so much for your time. Everybody that's listening, tuned in, thank y'all for your time. Mr. George Walker, I appreciate you, sir. Always. Y'all take
Yes.
care and be careful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless y'all.
God
God bless you.
bless.
Thank you.